Today, I'm here with Bridges Reentry founder and executive director Gay Romack and Dr. MJ Osmick, board member, to talk about Transition to Success, a core program at Bridges Reentry. So let's start, MJ, with how did you hear about Transition to Success?
Well, I read a book, and the book was called Diagnosis Poverty, a topic that I've been interested in for a very long time. It was written by Marcella Wilson, who's a PhD, who worked for a decade in Detroit in the largest Head Start program in the country and looked at the problems that were associated with the folks. And she decided that there needed to be some way to think about poverty and eradicating it. She did this through a curriculum that she developed over time, working with coaches and clients to begin to understand what they needed to become economically independent. So in fact, the vision actually of Transition to Success is the eradication of poverty and the stigma associated with it. That's a big picture.
So Gay, why bring Transition to Success to Bridges Reentry?
Well, when Marcella and MJ told me about this book, I thought, well, I better read this because I'd always been interested in poverty and as soon as I read the book, I closed it and I reread it. And I thought, this is really big. This is something that Bridges Reentry can use with their newly adopted, at the time, our Whole Woman Wellness Strategy that we had spent a lot of time at the board working on 5 pillars that we thought were instrumental to healing the women coming out of prison. And their emotional health and well-being, physical health and well-being, addiction recovery, spiritual health, and economic empowerment. And all of these pillars work together in a holistic way to help these women who have been in poverty. More than likely, you don't go to prison if you haven't been, if you haven't rubbed up against poverty and the social determinants of health. And these women, in addition to that, have experienced trauma and addiction and isolation and all of these things that are layered that were actually addressed in this book about poverty. And so I became really interested in how we could take that whole Transition to Success framework and use it in Bridges Reentry. And it was really clear at the time, because one of the studies had been done on men who had been incarcerated and what they went through in their reentry process. And what was determined was all of these things that Bridges had in our Whole Woman Wellness Strategy, all of those things were addressed. And so I knew there was a connection. I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to be, but I knew it was there.